Apart from that, we'll get started. And we're going to start with, I hope I can do this all the speakers justice, David Johnston of Harvey Associates.
I'm sorry?
Where you go?
I don't think the laser doesn't work very well.
Just in time technical infrastructure.
All right.
And I'll let you introduce yourself and explain what you do and how you came to be an expert on rats.
Okay. All right. There. Can you hear that? Yeah. Okay. I'm Dave Johnston. I'm an ecologist, senior ecologist with Harvey Associates. I'm also an adjunct full professor at San Jose State, and I taught for a number of years at Santa Clara University. So I'd like this to be an open forum. More recently, probably the last, let's see, a little more background. For 15 years, I was the director of Youth Science Institute and added 2 new centers to their program, and then decided I wanted to be more of a biologist and less of an administrator. So I went back to school, got a degree in biology, a PhD at Toronto, came back, and I've been working on bats ever since. We're not talking about bats tonight. I came into the rat business because I was thrown into a situation where we had the main Hetch-Hetchy line, the 96-inch main water line after the 2 mains come together, and it was moving a 1/4 inch a day. And the entire hillside was moving. It was like a war zone. There were sheriffs all over the place. It was complete craziness. We had raw sewage for about a week, and when I finally complained to the health department and I finally talked to the director, another SWAT team came down. But it was like that. And in the midst of all that, the regulatory agencies had to give the PUC carte blanche, do what you need to do, we'll mitigate later. And so I was the biologist, and red-legged frogs, we're going to do this. Wood rats, we're going to do this. And boom, 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 all the way through, because we had to figure out what to do to save the line. We're going to mitigate later. What do I mean by mitigate? Most of you know, but I like the dictionary definition, which was to make less, to make harm seem less harmful. Okay? Notice it never said to, make the same, because you don't. It's never the same. Okay. Now I have to tell you a little story about wood rats. Many years ago, I actually worked for vector control and worked very regularly with roof rats, noro rats, and very rarely wood rats. But in fact, I've lived with wood rats most of my life on Saratoga Creek, and they can be a nuisance. And yes, they are a California species of special concern. We're going to go through some of the laws in a few minutes. Is the vector control person going to talk about the differences between these? Between those 3 species?
I was going to lower on the nori rat and the roof rat, but I did bring brochures on the wood rat.
Okay. Well, if you I'm not going to cover roof rats or wood or Norway rats here, so we'll just identify each as they come along. But there are very distinct differences between these species, and they aren't, at least wood rats are not very closely related to the other 2. Okay, my little story, my introductory story to wood rats. I was driving to lecture at Santa Clara University, and I got on the freeway, and I couldn't get out of 2nd gear. And I kept it, and I let go of the acceleration, and I thought, okay, maybe that'll work, And so the engine would die down, and then I'd rev it up, and each time it was just 2nd gear, and it was driving me nuts. Well, I made it to lecture, on time in fact, and I had a pretty busy schedule, and I didn't get a chance to even pop the hood on my car. It got dark, And I went back to my car and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to deal with that transmission problem. So I popped the hood at a gas station and I'm looking around and I couldn't find much. There was just like, seemed like a loose wire, a couple loose wires. And I thought, well, maybe if I can just connect those, you know, maybe it'll fix the problem. And I didn't know why, but I did do that. And in fact, I could change to third gear again. And didn't worry about it. I was busy. I went home. 2 days later, I couldn't get out of first gear. I did not only have third, I didn't have second or third gear. And at this point, it was did not get on the freeway. I thought, okay, something's going on here. Popped the hood, and there's a wood rat in my Jeep. And so I drove home, and I tried to route the wood rat out with a hose. I just sprayed water on him. I thought that was better than getting dropped off on the freeway somewhere. I couldn't get him out. Eventually I did fix that again. I drove to the Y in this case, worked out, drove back. The wood rat was still in my car. And this is pretty annoying because now twice I had fixed it. The trick was to change the habitat. And that is my message here. It's all about habitat for wood rats. I left the hood open, and it was raining, it was February, and it was no longer dry every night. In fact, it was pretty wet. Wood rat disappeared, decided not to build a nest in my Jeep. So they can be vigilant about hanging in somewhere, and they have incredible sight fidelity. Okay, with that, I'm going to show you a few slides. So after my experience with the PUC and Polemus Creek, all of a sudden I was mitigating for wood rat populations and reviewing other plans. The very large project up at Devil Slide I reviewed, and I'm now working on a set of protocols for efficient game. A little bit about their ecology. So that this is both some of the things I did during that project, and I've done many since then, but also a little bit about their ecology.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, it is a California species of special concern. If you look here, we don't have a laser printer, but the ventrum or the ventral area is quite white, and they often have sort of a brownish coloring. You can't see it on this picture very well. Brownish coloring on the feet, hence the name dusky-footed. A little bit about their population ecology and genetics. Marjorie Maddock recently did some work on the dusky-footed wood rat, very complex species that had many populations. And previously, through Hull and Kelson, 59 initially, they identified many populations in the state and surrounding area. So in the Central California, I'm just listing those 4. The one we have here is the first one, number 4, Neotoma fucipes annectans, or the San Francisco dusky-footed wood rat, that being a unique and distinct subspecies of the species. Oh, is it hard to hear?
Yeah.
Okay, be happy.
And then
Yeah, it didn't seem it's low enough that I don't think it's picking
you
up.
can still see what you're doing.
Okay, I can tell the difference. Is that better? Okay, I'm sorry. So, now all we need is a laser printer. I'm only going to mention, well, let's mention 3, number 4, the San Francisco dusky-footed wood rat. Number 5, Perplexa is actually along the inner coast there. Number 6 is actually an endangered species, it occurring only in the delta. And those populations have been hit very hard by some of the floods there, but they're just barely hanging on. And 7 I'll mention to Neotoma fucipes luciana, that being the Monterey dusky-footed wood rat, another California species of special concern. Marjorie took hundreds of genetic samples, these were tissue samples, and then looked at the mitochondrial DNA and separated them in larger groups. If you'll notice the west central area representing our own San Francisco dusky-footed wood rat. So the range is actually a little bit larger than was originally perceived. Monterey dusky-footed wood rat, a similar story. It's not only in Monterey, but it follows south into Southern California and then up north past the Tehachapi in the Southern Sierra. Now, what does this mean? It means that the populations are slightly larger than we once thought, that are unique populations. In other words, they combined some of the old subspecies. The really interesting thing here to me is the dividing line between the coastal Neotoma luciana or Monterey dusky-footed wood rat and the San Francisco dusky-footed wood rat. It is, in fact, right on the line of elkhorn slough. Why would anyone want to guess why it might be there and not, let's say, the Pajaro River or somewhere near there? A little louder, please. Why might it be? Anybody, any geologist here who might know why Elkhorn Slough might be the divider line here? I'll just tell you, that used to be the more extensive San Jose Strait. And so 20 million years ago, you had a major inland sea going in there. Now that's all closed up and it's quite different. Okay, a little bit about their ecology. There are several kinds of wood rat nests. These guys are actually pretty clever. They will use different structures in that they'll use, let's say, rocky habitat. They'll use the crotch of a tree or logs. They'll use very small twigs in a shrub situation, like a poison oak, thick brush. They will also build aerial nests. And when I mean aerial, I mean nests that are as high or higher than tree squirrels, like the eastern gray and western gray and fox squirrel. Okay, a little bit about their food. They eat a lot of things, but they prefer hardwoods. They do very well under oaks. Coast live oak here, those of you who are farther up the canyon live oak, valley oak down here, big leaf maple, California bay, buckeye, elderberry does very well, or elderberry habitats are very good for wood rats. By the way, I took this picture, it was a warm day that day, and I was just leaving, and this wood rat had crawled out on the road and was just sitting there, absorbing the warmth. I have seen them in the middle of the day, although they prefer nighttime, but I've seen wood rats any time of the day. They eat a lot of herbaceous things, particularly things like blackberries, wood ferns, and grasses. One of the ways you can tell an active wood rat nest is if it has recently browsed or cut green material. So when you see a green frond at the edge of the nest, green grasses and so on, that's often an indication of activity. They also have little urine stations and fecal stations, basically a bathroom, right? And then it's not inside the nest. Typically, it's just on the outside of the nest. A few other things. Wood rat nests form homes, if you will, for many other species, including western fence lizard, alligator lizard, and what is called a parasitic mouse, otherwise known as California mouse. So, in one sense, it's a keystone species in that it provides habitat for many other species. The other more important thing ecologically for larger mammals and predatory birds is that it forms a very important base prey. There are a lot of things that eat wood rats. In fact, I don't have it in here, but we captured a beautiful picture of a bobcat carrying away a large adult wood rat. Quite a prize. But in that sense, wood rats are important, not just in themselves, but because they're an important prey base for many types of medium-sized predators. Okay, a little bit about laws and how they protect wood rats. Federal laws provide many parts of the environment, but in terms of the Endangered Species Act, the only law that actually protects dusky-footed wood rat would be the riparian subspecies in the Delta. Ours is not directly covered by any federal law. Of the state laws, we have California Environmental Quality Act and various California Department of Fish and Game codes, probably the most important of the CDFG codes being the 1600 series, which are streambed alteration agreements. A Department of Fish and Game analyst has to sign off on a streambed alteration if you're going to disturb riparian or streambed in any way. And so that becomes a valuable tool for the department in the compliance of the law, and it covers many other species other than what would show on the surface. One of them being dusky-footed wood rats. So I'm just curious, how many of you live along Adobe Creek here? Raise your hand, please. Are any of you involved in the wood rat mitigation side along Reach 5 with the Water District?
Yes, I don't live there, but I'm the coordinator or facilitator for that group.
Okay. There are a lot of players. More recently, the Water District called me in to help them out with the situation. They had 22 wood rat nests inside the stream bed, and they are basically redoing the entire stream bed. So we had to remove wood rats and their habitat so that we weren't going to harm them, at the same time allow construction to proceed. And apparently it was missed in the CEQA document. But the Water District still needed to comply with the laws, and in this case it involved a streambed alteration agreement. CEQA will probably only rarely deal with wood rats. I would be surprised if you have a wood rat nest and it's a CEQA document and they call out for mitigation for a single wood rat nest. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's actually up to the interpretation of the biologist there. But finally, more and more importantly, the last one is specific policy decisions and documents written by local agencies. Probably the best example I have is the burrowing owl, because this has got really no more protection than the dusky-footed wood rat, and yet the city of San Jose has decided that if you remove habitat of a breeding pair, you need to mitigate that with 6.5 acres. Pretty expensive in Santa Clara County. So, in fact, the mitigation areas are usually in the Central Valley. But that's a policy that they have made and enforced for developers. Okay, there are other state laws that protect wood rats. They're less important, and it'd probably be very rare that somebody got prosecuted, but in fact there are laws to protect them. Basically, all non-game mammals are protected by Fish and Game Code. You cannot just unilaterally kill non-game species. So that also includes the removal of, let's say, a wood rat nest with adults or young where they might be harmed or die. Here we go. Whoops. Okay, this is almost, this is a really interesting situation. This is a recent project of mine in Portola Valley. And I don't know, is Linda here tonight? No. So I wondered if she was going to be here or not. This is actually her it's a project. She's trying to make her lot and home completely green, and I mean completely. Nothing is leaving the site. Her swimming pool will have no chemicals. It's all UV filtered, and she's having a marsh around it, etc. She has a wonderful hutch and chicken coop that you can see there. She has food and water out all the time, and she has a local population of wood rats. We found 26 adults and 2 young a few days ago when we tried to remove them. So this is under the permission of Fish and Game. It was presenting a health hazard. She has 3 young children. She's trying to do the right thing, but it was a little complicated. I'm just telling you that you can get to a situation where they can get out of hand. I do not recommend living with wood rats or having them in your home any more than I would suggest allowing or permitting roof rats in the roof. So why are they species of special concern? I mean, why are we even worried about rats? I mean, after all, these are rats, right? Well, because of some of the reasons I told you, they become a keynote species for other species, both smaller that live in the nest and also predators. So when you take out wood rats, you also take out a certain percentage of the populations of bobcats, fox, and so on. So red-tailed hawks, eagles, and so on and so on. In the metropolitan Bay Area, they became a species of special concern primarily because they have been extirpated from most of the valley floor. Now, Los Altos Hills, I have to say, is a pretty green place when you compare it to many parts of the Bay Area. So you enjoy or have to put up with, like I do, deer and other things like that. Deer are a huge nuisance for me. But because I live on the edge of a wild area, I have both, all the goodness and all the nuances of being close to wildlife. House cats are a big problem for wood rats. I think they will coexist with house cats, but in many cases, house cats take the place of bobcats and other native prey or predators. These are just some of my thoughts for agencies that have to change a landscape and all of a sudden find out they have either large or very large populations of wood rats. So I try and avoid the tractor wood rat nest situation because the tractor usually wins. And if you can simply avoid the area that the wood rats are in, you're going to be far better off. I've seen wood rats only a few feet away from a lot of disturbance, and I haven't seen any movement of those wood rats. They have, again, very high site fidelity. Okay, I'm going to try and just go very quickly. In one case, there was a wood rat nest that was over 100 years old, I'm guessing. It was huge. It was 6 feet high and almost as wide. And when I asked the engineers if they could move the footpath just 10 feet away so that they wouldn't have to take out this very old and significant nest, he said no problem. So it was an easy mitigation to take care of. It didn't change the path at all, except that it's a few feet away, and people get to see this huge, huge nest. Okay, I'm going to just keep going here because I want to talk a little bit about relocation because I'm trying to get other biologists and agencies and consultants not to just simply relocate nests. Because when you do that, when you capture a wood rat and you move it into other habitat, the other habitat is probably going to be already full. there's a lot of competition among animals, and so any given area will have reached a carrying capacity, meaning that it's the amount of food available matches the number of wood rats. And also you have predators taking off anything above that. But when you remove habitat, save the wood rats and take those wood rats in an already existing habitat that already has a population, you will get a net loss of wood rats, and you'll only get the same number that was in that habitat. So, I mean, it doesn't do anything good except make you feel good, but, you know, those wood rats are ultimately going to be lost, and you have a net loss of habitat and rats. This is just some images of that Hetch Hetchy line that was moving quarter inch a day, and they took that canyon and filled it up with heavy rock. There were hundreds of loads of trucks. I mean, not hundreds of tons, hundreds of truckloads of heavy gravel that was used to fill in this canyon to stabilize the Hetch Hetchy line. Let's see, we're trying to go. Okay, and ultimately, then I removed 5 nests, and that area that's colored then was filled in with rock. I made a mitigation area. What I did was I created habitat that wasn't there before. I created structure. And many of the projects I work on now, I create or add structure and food. So for the water district, we're adding many plants that are wood rat friendly so that they can exist in other areas that they hadn't before. This is sticking here a little bit. Come on. Oops. Okay. Just go back for a second. Okay, so I moved the stick nests, which are no longer no longer nests, into areas well into the other habitat. But in the end, there's some of the gravel there. The wood rats took matters in their own hands. They knew where they wanted to rebuild those nests. And from the sticks of 5 nests, 7 new homes were built. Now, I don't know if they were the same wood rats or not. But the point being that in the end, we saved part of the population. I'm back on. Okay. Oops. Come on. We're going to just go very quickly through this. Structure is very important. Density is not as important as food, as long as there's enough food. These are the type of structures that they used. Come on. And I did find, scientifically, differences in areas that had structure and didn't. So I'm going to just keep going here. All right. So at this point, I have 4 or 5 projects. I think in most of your situations, you're home owners, and I wanted to present more of an ecological point of view, and also what agencies are doing to conserve these populations, give you a little bit of background why it's a California species of special concern. Okay, there are a lot of aspects of their ecology I didn't cover, but certainly we could during a question period. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They hand up already, so I'll see a few questions here.
I'm sorry, but I've lived in this area for 20 years, and the last first 20 years we lived here, we did not have a problem with rats. And now we have an over surplus of rats. And the only rat I consider a good rat is a dead rat.
When I worked for the Santa Clara County Health Department, we marked out all the roof rat problems. There are far more roof rat problems. than there were Norway rat or wood rat problems. Wood rat problems are actually very, very rare. So what was really interesting to us is that the areas that had the most problem were Saratoga, Los Altos Hills, and then Los Altos, Cupertino, and Los Gatos, and pretty much in that order. Why is that? Because the people along this narrow belt of the Santa Clara County are more affluent, they have more landscaping, more fruit trees, more gardens, and they often feed their pets outside. So what's interesting is that well-landscaped areas have serious rat problems. I know the county, when I was there in the 70s, we were spending over $100,000 a year on roof rat control. So roof rats are a serious problem, and you need to work with your local health department, who is represented here, I believe, correct? Yes, so, you know, these are very different animals, and Norway rats are very different. So I'm not suggesting that you put up with wood rats in your home, but they are a type of rodent that is often along the creeks here. Yes?
How heavy, how much would a large adult weigh? We have both kinds, and I'm trying to figure out which one goes in the attic.
If it's in the attic, I'd lay wagers that you have root rats. It wouldn't be impossible to have wood rats, but I've never actually heard of wood rats in attics.
Yeah, they were in Italian Cyprus. But how heavy do they get?
I don't know, I'm guessing, I could probably look it up, but I'm guessing about 150 grams. I mean, I don't, quarter pound, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
More? Okay. Yeah, I don't weigh them, I don't do that. So, a wood rat, I can tell you in size, they're actually quite large.
Yeah. Right.
The body is about like this.
Right.
Yes. Yes, in the back. Flannel shirt.
Who will keep track of the health of the disease that these rats might spread?
That is under the charge of the health department.
I mean, my cats, occasionally I'll get a rat that last spring. He got a horrible disease from this rat they got. And, I mean, apart from not letting our cats go outside, is there anybody in the health department can refer to that they do monitor the disease? You know, during the Middle Ages, they had plagues caused by that kind of disease.
We still have plague today, and if you read the morbidity and mortality reports for the state of California, the two counties that have the most incidents of the plague are San Luis Obispo County and Plumas County. So plague is not gone, it's extremely rare, and most physicians can recognize it and treat you with a common antibiotic. It's been a while since I worked in the health department, so I couldn't tell you, what the incidence of plague is today. But there are most certainly health issues associated with any wild populations, including wood rats, Norway rats, roof rats, dogs, cats, anything that's out there. So yes, there are definitely health hazards.
Well, I think I want to cut this period a little short. We have more time to ask questions and have more information to talk about that. This lady here did get cut off, so we'll end with her question.
And I'd like, the health questions, although I have some knowledge about environmental health, I'd really like to defer those to our health department and give him a chance, because those questions need to be fielded to him. I actually thought we were going to go through all three presentations and then
I thought we'd do a little each time in case you had
all
specific
right.
questions.
The woman in front of you, yes. Yes.
Where are these wood rats native of? I know some come
No.
And if the prey, if they're prey for big animals, what did the animals eat before they came?
Okay, the dusky-footed wood rat has been here for millions and millions of years. So it is the native. The Norway rat is cosmopolitan. That is, it occurs all over the world. It's considered the ship rat. It also can transmit rat bite fever, which we do not have out here. And the roof rat, which is the one that carried the plague, is from Europe, but it is also cosmopolitan, found all over the world. And it's co-evolved with humans. The dusky-footed wood rat is completely native, and it's a very tiny part of the population of rats out there. Okay.
But it is one that's relevant for us in Los Angeles because you see these nests around, and part of today's education is to understand why a rat is not just a rat sometimes. So, great, so we'll have more time for more questions after the next speakers, and that may bring in more information that makes your question, either already answers your question or makes for a different flavor.